Welcome to Pro Shop Talk. I'm Daniel. I'm the technical director with RW Supply+Design, and today we're going to be talking about alternative stains for hardwood floors. I'm going to be talking with RJ, who's the technical director for Pallmann, and he's also been a contractor for a lot of years. Pallmann is launching an alternative stain to classic oil-based stains, and we're going to be talking through that. So welcome, RJ.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Kind of excited about this topic just because stains have been the same thing for a long time, and there have been some alternative stains in the past, but they probably have gotten a bad rap for application issues and other things. So, I mean, the first question I have as a contractor is, why do I need something different than the oil-based stains that are on the market right now? Like, can apply the ones that are out there right now, and if it ain't broke, I'm not gonna fix it. So why should I even consider a different stain?
Couple of reasons. I mean, the main one was, you said it already, that those stains have been around for a long time and they're not safe. That's the primary reason the industry is looking for different ways to color a floor, is the safety factor that's involved in a high VOC. And just to correct the terminology a little bit, those are technically solvent-based stains, not oil-based stains. There's a slightly different, it does an oil carrying agent to it, but they're solvent-based. That's where they're very high in VOC and the danger is, and just the physical odor of them.
Gotcha.
So I've spread them for a long, long time, very sensitive to that.
Gotcha.
So, but that's the main reason. The same reason the industry is starting to restrict the size of oil modified urethanes that you can purchase it in. That's why 21 states now are on court exemptions. You can't buy the oil modified in a 5-gallon jug in a lot of places anymore, because of the VOC regulations and the safety of them.
Gotcha.
So that's the main reason we're looking at alternative stains.
Okay, so when you're talking about safety, you're not talking about like the safety of having your finish peel or things like that. You're talking about health safety.
Health safety is a primary one, but in the system, especially in our system, this is a completely more compatible system. We have been mixing solvent and water together for a long time with the stains that we're putting down and then putting water on top of them. And everybody here has experienced an issue with that. Again, everybody who watches this video has experienced an issue with that, a finish turning white, either in the line or in the open grain, because the stain was not completely dry. And the solvent will then affect the finish on top of it.
Okay,
so,
gotcha. So what is your new stain called, and how is it different from a oil modified solvent stain?
So the product is called Pall-x 2-kolorit. I've been with Pallmann almost 9 years, and we've been working on this since the year before I started. So we've been working on it for a long time. It's extremely hard chemistry. It's a natural oil base, and we put in a polyisocyanate drying agent to guarantee coating times. So we can quantify whether the product is dry or not. You can coat this. It is a completely water compatible system. And so now we're not mixing a solvent and a water. We're now in a completely and totally tolerant system to where you can wipe the general way to tell if a stain right now, if it's dry, is to wipe it with a white rag. If you get color transfer, product's probably not dry. This, we don't even care if it's dry. If it's been down 5 hours for any of the colors, you can coat it. And anything in the white line, if it's been down for 12 hours, you can coat it. And we'll stand behind it 100%.
Gotcha, okay. So just to make sure I have this right, because it gets confusing. The classic stains guys are using are oil solvent, which means you have a solvent that's an oil that's evaporating off. You said your stain is an oil, but the difference is it's an oil with a hardening agent, so it penetrates into the wood and hardens up without that evaporation of solvent?
Evaporation, yes.
Okay. Yes. The next big question I have as a contractor is, how do I apply this? And is it going to be drastically different from the way I'm used to applying regular stains?
So this is one of the factors that we've worked on for a long time, because some of the early intuitions of this product that we had some very specific application rules. And we said, hey, there's still a lot of American contractors that rag the stain on and rag it back off. So it's one of the criteria we were trying to meet. So if that's the way you do it, you can do it that way. It's the most unpleasant way to put down any stain, but it is a way you can do it. We prefer that it's physically troweled on and buffed off, or buffed on and buffed off. I've done some where I've rolled it on and buffed it off. I've been on a job site where we rolled it on and ragged it off. So really, I mean, I spent about 2 to 3 weeks writing instructions for this product, and I could have said, physically mix the two components together within the next couple of hours, get that onto the floor. Within the next 2 to 3 hours, get it back off the floor. That's really what has to happen in any way that you want to do it.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, it sounds like a decently idiot-proof system to use. So are there any limitations to how I should cut in a house or cut in a room? Like, you know, or if I have a cutting guy, how far ahead of me he can get before I come back and blend the field into the walls? Or are there any limitations to that degree?
None that we've come across yet. I mean, I probably wouldn't cut it in and go home for the weekend and come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're doing it the same day, it's the diffusiveness is completely off the charts.
Gotcha.
As far as how well it will diffuse back together.
Okay. If I leave a can of a lid or something over here and I get a ring on the floor, are you worried about that showing
Not
up?
at all. In no way, shape, or form. I've walked through it and left footprints for 45 minutes.
Yep.
And been completely fine. I've left, when buffing it off, so typically with a penetrating oil like our magic oil, when you're buffing that product off and you pick up your buffer and you have the ring on the floor, with magic oil, you got about 5 minutes. You need to wipe that up. It's going to be hot and heavy. I've left that in place for an hour and been able to take it back off.
Gotcha. So in terms of the putting it on, you talked about rag, roll, pad, trowel, whatever to get it on. Besides just like the rag off method, which, you know, it's labor and time intensive, how would you get that off of a floor with a buffer? How would you recommend something off of a floor?
So I like to go over it twice. I like to go over it with the red pad, move it around after it's applied, however you get on the floor. I like to rub it around with the red pad. Then I crawl my edge real quick, wipe up the edge by hand with the rag, and then I white pad off. That's the most classic way. I've done it with a carpet round several times, works completely fine. Been in a couple instances where we've taken towels and tucked them underneath the pad and brought it back off that way. As long as you do reasonably the same across the whole, if you were to do a terry cloth towel in one spot and a white pad in another, the terry cloth is slightly more absorbent, so you could possibly have maybe a little color difference there. It still is kind of challenging to do, but and I've also gone, so when I would put down a solvent-based stain as a contractor, I would white pad it on and white pad it off kind of at the same time. I wouldn't really walk back into it. I would just buff my way out. I've done 2-color the same way. That's the slowest way. The fastest way is to trowel, go back into it, red pad it, wipe the edges down and white pad it off. That's the easiest, fastest way.
Gotcha. So you're just white padding it until you've loaded the white pad. Use the next side until you load it.
And slightly different than the penetrating oil side. The way this product works is we don't use nearly as many pads as we do in that arena. Typically with a penetrating oil, we're talking about 2 pads for every 500 square feet or so, 2 reds and 2 whites, both sides. This we're less than 1 pad. Typically it's 1 side each for 500 square feet.
Okay. And then how do you know when you've loaded the white pad when you're buffing off? Do you see swirl marks?
You'll start to see a swirl. If you're putting, one of the white colors down on a hickory, you might need to look into the light to make sure you're removing it all, because you don't want any excess product left on the floor. Basically take off what will come off, but you would see a swirl, and ultimately the floor is going to tell you when it's full. It will tell you, if you look back across and you can see thirsty areas, get back out there, put a little bit more on, and don't leave any swirls or slings.
Gotcha.
That's really it.
Yep. And then it sounds like another big difference with this is you got stain and you got your second component and you're mixing those together.
Yeah, so that is the one compromise that we made. We wanted it to be a single component product, but we don't have a way to guarantee the component A drying on its own. It will work eventually, but I can't tell you if it's going to dry in 12 hours or 72 hours on a floor. It varies a lot. So the secondary, the isocyanate hardener or drying agent is there to guarantee the coating time.
Gotcha.
So that at that time, once you're done with that floor, start your clock 5 hours later, you can get on it. It can also sit as long as 72 hours. There is a back end to it. It's kind of impractical, like that you would let a stain, anybody's stain sit for, 4 or 5 days, but there is 72 hours is the back end where you do need to get finish on top of it. If it goes past 72 hours, then we would run our X-Bond system over the top of that and then put finish on it.
Okay.
Just to guarantee adhesion at that time.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, I mean, obviously you could only endorse Pallmann products over the top of that, but guys are going to use a lot of different finishes. Are there any incompatibility issues with certain types of finish over that stain?
None that we have found yet.
Okay.
None that we have found yet. We can, again, you said it properly. We can't guarantee it across the spectrum. We don't know everybody's formulation, if they've changed a slight formulation somewhere or something, but we have not come across any compatibility issues at this time.
Gotcha. Can you, or would you ever want to use 2 coats of Colorit?
Absolutely. So there's 2 ways you can do it. The first one was, and I experienced this a handful of times as a contractor, put down a stain, say Provincial, come back the next day, the homeowner's like, oh, could we make it just slightly darker? You can put a second coat of this product down. Your coating time now does go to 12 hours. So you cannot coat that in 5 hours. The second coat, the coating time is 12 hours. But you can put down a second coat of the same color, or you can put down a second coat of a different color. In all the testing and the sampling we've done, I've had good luck putting a darker color on top of a lighter color. The lighter color on top of the darker color, because it doesn't cheroose quite the same as a penetrating oil, is slightly trickier.
Gotcha.
And it does, the effect is not quite what you're desiring, but if you do, you can make a really unique color, putting down nutmeg and putting antique brown on top of it, and it doesn't look like they're mixed together. It's more of a dimensional color look. So yeah, you can do 2 coats of it.
So then I would assume, like, if somebody's going to get into like the cerussing, which is typically more of a lighter color on top of a darker, that's where they're probably going to switch to like magic oil over the stain.
Yeah, it just, the way those products are designed with the wax involved, the magic oil is easier to cherouse. It's a more distinct cherousing, let's say it that way. It will hold more in the soft grain, whereas to color it, the lighter color is going to kind of color the entire surface a little bit. So it doesn't have that hard, distinct, open, soft grain, hard grain appearance.
Okay. You said that Colorit is a sealer as well. So if you use this, do you jump straight to finish, or would you still use the Pallmann sealers over the top?
Nope.
Of it?
So there'd be no instance where you would put a sealer on top of this. We're going directly to 2 coats of finish. This is actually our best sealer in the line now. It just happens to have a bunch of colors that you're going to recognize, and it's applied differently. But this is truly our best sealer. And again, the way that I like to show guys that, or do a test on your own, is to put it down next to a regular stain and put water on top of both of them and let them sit and see which one has the most grain raise when that water dries.
Yeah, interesting. So then that doesn't add in another step like a traditional stain. In a traditional stain, you're adding that before the sealer, but this takes the place of the sealer.
Yep. So this is actually cutting time. It's cutting an entire time over the floor, one time over the floor. And we've done several situations now where we've stained 2-kolorit the floor, come back in the morning, put down a coat of finish, come back end of day, just looked at the floor to see if there was any hair, any debris, little light hand sand on any debris that was in it, and coated it again with no intercoat abrasion at all. So you can save an extra step there as well, and an extra day. Stain goes down, dries overnight, sealer finish goes down, come back the next day, so you're at 3 days. This we can do all the time in 2 days.
Gotcha.
So we're saving a whole day in the process as well.
Is magic oil still 2 coats over the top of this?
Most of the time, magic oil is going to be 1 coat over the top of this. We've had a couple of instances with highly absorbent, like a walnut floor, where to get the sheen to where we wanted it, we did do a second coat of magic oil on top of it. But typically 1 coat of magic oil is enough. And I think the primary factor here, again, for me, is reverting back to the safety of the product, in that this is a sub 30 VOC product, whereas traditional stains are 350 to 550. Some of them are even higher. And everybody that's going to watch this video knows what that smells like and feels like when you're done staining a floor. This has a little odor to it, but it is a 30 VOC. It's actually made from a cold pressed flour, is the oil that we're using. And it is skin contact safe. So if it gets on your skin, it will not permeate through your skin and cause any damage. It will color your cuticles, your wife might not be happy, but it is skin contact safe, which is, as a guy, I'm 57 years old, I've been doing this for 32 years. Everything in the industry has gotten better and safer. We've gotten less dust. We've gotten less noise in the sanding process. All of the waterborne finishes are less VOCs, faster drying, much safer to work with and use. Stain has been the outlier. This coloring system has been the outlier of being it's still very caustic. It's still very smelly. It's really, really hard chemistry to have an alternative stain that provides the depth and level of color that we need for the American contractor and the American homeowner, and isn't really super hard to apply. So we've created in this product one that is physically safer, lower VOCs, and it's easier to apply, and it's less expensive because you're cutting an entire step out of the system. So, I really think it's it's a big jump forward in the industry.
Any difference in how you sand a floor versus traditional stain?
No, it's not going to do you any more favors as far as scratches and swirls than a regular stain would.
Yep.
So that same rule applies. You could, in theory, with any stain, you could over burnish a floor. Like everybody wants, every manufacturer wants the floor as open as possible to get some penetration with their stain. So on a planetary device, if you're stopping at 100 or 120, you're going to be fine. On a single rotary device, if you're going to 150, that would also be fine. Like most traditional stains on the market, water popping will help a lot will help to a degree with the swirls and stuff like that.
Yep.
And from a practical standpoint, no matter how good you are or how good your equipment is and how good your abrasives are, those abrasives are changing across the surface. So 100 feet later, they're not doing the exact same thing they did when they started.
Yeah.
Water is a neutral grain preparation. So the water popping will neutrally prepare the surface. It's not dependent on, if you get it dramatically more wet and dramatically less wet, it doesn't have that much effect on it. So that's really the key to having, why the industry does a lot of water popping is that neutral passive grain preparation.
Gotcha. What about repairability? Like if I come back in and I see either little dots of finish, or if I see some board I just need to replace, how easy is this to repair? So
general repairability is going to be very similar to any other product. Repairs are more art than science. So if you have a flaker board that you have to physically remove and replace, that process is going to be very similar to what you would do with a solvent-based stain. If you have an area where somebody drug a knee pad or a toe and crushed the grain, and you have a little bit lighter line, that's much easier to repair with this product. Wait for it to dry, very, very lightly touch it with like a 220 grit piece of sandpaper or screen, very, very lightly touch it. Put a little bit of oil back on that surface, let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes, wipe it off. It's extremely easy to repair in that scenario, much easier than the solvent base when you have a grain crush line. So again, like I've always said, if there was a clear and concise manual for repairs, that'd be awesome, but it's not something that can happen in the industry. It's more art than science.
Gotcha.
So, but it is no harder, and in a couple instances, it's easier to repair than a traditional system.
Okay. I assume all the colors can be intermixed.
Yep, they're completely intermixable in any way, shape, or form, the component A's. If you are doing that, it comes in a liter. We're extremely consistent at 400 square feet per liter. We state 300 to 500. Highly absorbent floor, maybe a little less, real polished floor, maybe a little bit more. But on a water popped oak, we've been very consistent at 400. So if you're doing an 800 square foot floor, pre-batch all of your component A, just to make sure that you're not mixing that together midstream. So kind of a logic, but then you can catalyze or harden the segments as you go, but just pre-mix all of component A if you're doing a larger surface.
Gotcha.
So just to guarantee the color. So, because a lot of times you could do 2 parts of this and 1 part of that, and the next time you could be like, 2 parts of this and 1 part of that.
Right.
Mess it up. So just like any other stain, practically
Gotcha.
Mix the component A together.
Because this is a new product to a lot of guys, I'm sure people will find creative ways to screw it up. So what are the easiest pitfalls that somebody can avoid with this as they're learning to use this type of product?
Not mixing in component B. That's one that, we're fearful is going to happen. Somebody's going to use it without the secondary component. They're going to, forget it, or, they're going to send a helper out to grab it and he doesn't mix it together. Product will still work. The dry time is completely unpredictable at that point. There's no way to say when it's going to dry. That's kind of the main one. As far as the application of it, I have not figured out a way to mess it up yet. And I've tried. It's kind of a fun part of my job is I get paid to do that now. I've applied it in multiple different ways on the same floor and had the exact same appearance at the end. I've left hard cross-grain lines for more than an hour and had them completely diffuse away. So I think other than, not missing a spot and, not, if you are troweling the floor, not, physically cutting the floor with a trowel, something like that, I haven't figured out how you can mess it up yet. And like I say, it's part of my job. I actually get paid to try to mess it up, and I have not come up with there's ways it will be harder. If you put way too much product on the floor, you got to get it back off. So I think the main thing is the pot life on the two components is not a tremendous factor. You got a couple hours to work with it. So that's because in the magic oil world, that's a way guys do mix up. They mix up more than they can physically get down on the floor in that period of time. But you can, I've completely troweled 700 square feet and gone back and then buffed it all later. That didn't make any difference. It was fine. So I think the main thing, if you did leave way too much oil on the floor and you didn't take the time to get it all back off, that would probably be the primary issue a guy could have. And it would just be that you didn't physically stay there and get it back off.
Gotcha.
So,
well, cool. The awesome part of my job is I get to put your claims to the test.
Yeah.
So the next step of this video is I'm going to get on a panel with this product and. So
Daniel, I would invite you to do legitimately anything you want with it.
Awesome.
That is the caveat I will throw out. And Daniel, we've known each other a little while, and you have an ability to mess things up. It's good. It's a good trait.
Yeah.
So I would say, in the end, please do whatever you want to do with it. If you can figure out a way to mess it up, then you're a better technical director than me.
Oh man, that's a great challenge. So awesome. Well, thank you for being here, answering the questions. I'm excited to try it. I'm always excited for new products, and especially when those new products kind of open up a whole new category for contractors. Yeah.
It's the reason I've stayed in the business is that we are advancing in every way, shape, and form.
Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for
awesome. Thanks for having me. Again, RW, thanks for the effort, man. Putting this information out, I think, is really helpful and important. So I appreciate it.
Anytime. See you later.